ultimately, when you are with your manager and you have that time, which is quite precious because you're both quite busy, you want it to be really kind of impactful. But then you start chatting, and I was talking about that to a member actually not long ago, where she was saying, I'm just chatting away. Next thing you know, the hour's gone, and she has to go back in treatment or on reception, and then we've just not really moved forward in any of the communication, really.
Yeah. I mean, it happens a lot.
So much.
Doesn't it? We do it as
We do
well.
it.
We do it.
So a cup of tea.
Yeah, we'll have an agenda, quick catch up. But, I mean, from experience with my manager, I mean, it is just about getting that communication right, isn't it? So that, I mean, really you need that once a week meeting, and it needs to be set and in there every week, and then you need the agenda of what you're going to discuss. What are the key points that you need to discuss at each meeting? I mean, yes, have a quick catch up, but you've just got to pull yourselves back in, and you've just got to have those key focuses. What do you need to know on a week by week basis? What do you need to focus on? What's, you know, you just need to have that set agenda for each meeting, and then, you know, and then you can go outside of that if there's further things to talk about.
Yeah, and is 1 hour enough? Like,
Yeah.
should you be considering kind of lengthening the meetings because you've got so much to talk about? Or is there an issue with the systems of communication, so you have to be pulled back into chit-chatting? The problem is, it's like, what is it you're talking about, isn't it? Is it just the fact that she's moved into a new house and you're talking about the new house?
Yeah.
Or are you actually talking about a client that's had a client complaint and you need to revisit that with your manager? Like, what is the chit-chatting that's stopping you from being productive into those meetings?
I think the chit chat is just the fact that us girls, maybe guys, love to have a chat, and you know, normally you have a good relationship with your manager, and you know, you've built this friendship, and you just end up having like a cup of tea and a catch up. But you do need those meetings to be productive. I mean, what also helps is if the manager is doing, so you've got your communication document throughout the week, so that you can, I mean, we love the Google Drive, and you have that communication document where if you need things done, you can pop it on there. If she needs you to know something, she can put it on there, or he. And then those the weekly meetings are set, you know, so that you're really discussing the core of what you need to talk about on a weekly basis, but you've got an idea of what's happened in the week, or an end of week report that sort of assists the meeting as well.
I mean, I used to get, like, I talk a lot about becoming that clipboard manager. That, you know, you just stand there and you have the clipboard and say, you must do this, you must do that, we haven't done this.
Yeah.
And I think that as a leader of your business, or if you know what you want, really, in a business,
you know what you want to know.
You know what you want to know, you know what you want to do, you kind of ultimately know how the business runs inside out. You've built it from the ground up, so you know exactly what you want. And to empower the managers, I think there's an element, and I used to get the managers to say, okay, so here's what I want every week, and I want you to go through this, and you presenting it to me. I'm not asking you the questions, or I'm not going through, oh, last week you did that much and there was that many clients. You tell me, here's the report, and you tell me what you see. Because by you telling me what you see, by you engaging your mind around the numbers, what's important, I'm going to be able to teach you more. Rather than me becoming that, or being that clipboard manager of like this. So the engagement is very different, and that's how I learned with my bosses many moons ago, was, you know, basically, Valerie, you present to me what's going on.
Yeah, that is so true actually, because it just puts a completely different spin on the meeting. You know, when it's, and again, like that happens in other sections of the business where the manager's presenting to the team, or pulling in for meetings, and really you want to be allowing the person who you're in the meeting with to come up with the ideas, to not be there saying, right, what did you do on this, what happened then, what you want your manager to come to you, and like you said, they know the elements of the meeting that needs to be covered. So they're therefore rounding up the week for you, telling you what they're going to do in the week coming up, you know, giving you an overview of how the team's running, have there been any problems, you know, she might need to, or he might need some support on certain areas, or questions that they want to ask or that have come about. what you're going to discuss the marketing, the incentives, the targets, all of those kind of things. But you're wanting them to come to you ultimately with.
There's an element as well when. Obviously, my favourite book is Drop the Pink Elephant. If you don't know it, just go and get it, because it's all about the communication. And part of the communication, he was talking about the body language being one of them. So how your body language. And the thing is, when you become very familiar with somebody, you bring on the cup of tea and you're sitting down and you're just having that good old chat because you're just so familiar. And sometimes switching off from your environment. So I used to come in and I used to sit down and with everyone, have a cup of tea, do the chit chat, and then take the managers and go away from the business, and we just sit down in a restaurant and have breakfast, or we just have a kind of lunch, but it's away from the business, and your mind is automatically in a different zone because you're not familiar in that environment where you are. Oh my God, you're here. I'm just going to blah, 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 tell you everything, and it's good. You want to say everything, and you want to hear them, and you want them to offload, and you want them to talk about Miss Smith, who's being a nightmare and left a terrible Google review. But ultimately, that has got to have that structure, like you said. This is what the topics you're going to discuss. But taking them away sometimes of the environment that they're familiar, that does change a lot.
I know, and it's funny you should say that, because I did used to do that with my manager. We used to actually come to my house. And she'd come here. The business was running, and they were absolutely fine. And she'd just come here for a couple of hours, and then we'd go back to the business together. Or she would, and that was really helpful as well. Sit at the kitchen table, and we'd really be able to knuckle down. And again, and you're not being interrupted either, because that's another element thing, of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think definitely, and all of our owners would probably say they end up getting into chit chat, kind of,
Of course.
and. It happens, but in order for the business to move forward, and for that manager to be effective, and for you to be able to step away and everything's taken care of, those meetings are so important and crucial. So they need to be there, stay in the diary, and you just need to be focused. So there's not really necessarily an answer as to, I mean, it is just stop the chat and find a different way to have a chat.
But do you even, in some respect, know what that manager, I'm not saying you don't, but do you know what your expectations of the manager is? Because if you don't, and you've just put them as manager, then you keep chit-chatting on things that are not relevant to their role.
And also, you might not know, again, I think, 90% of the people that we meet have ended up owning a salon because they've been a therapist previously or a stylist previously. So you yourself don't necessarily have that business set of skills to be an owner, but you've developed them over time. But then when you get yourself a manager that you've never had before, you're suddenly in this kind of arena where you're not sure what you need them to deliver to you anyway. You're not sure, which is what we discuss on lots of levels when we do coaching, whether it's with the reception team. Do they know what the manager and the owner does? Does the owner know what they expect? Does the manager know what's expected of them, and so on? And I think sometimes you just need a little bit of help understanding, okay, these are the subjects and the areas that will really that I need to be aware of on a weekly basis, because when you're in it as an owner, you know it, but you don't know you know it.
So that's so true. So true. So, a lot of time you underestimate the value you've got to bring in. And actually, I was talking to someone not long ago who's creating an event, and she was very proud of herself. She's delegated, the whole event to the manager, and the manager, so they have the meeting, and it was like, Valerie, is so good because I can feel that the delegation is there, and she thought of everything. She had the tick list, tick, 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 yes. Ordering the balloons, great. So the owner at the meeting was like, who's picking up the balloon? And she was like, oh, because you're in meeting, oh, yeah. And everyone's in, oh, yeah. So she hadn't thought further, but I was saying to the member that this is great because your role is important in the tiniest little detail. Tomorrow morning, they would have panicked thinking we haven't got the balloons. can we get them delivered, etc. But it's a tiny detail that you as an owner matters. So if you don't have those constructive meetings, you're forgetting and you're dismissing those little details that are actually going to give you massive frustrations in the end.
Yeah, and diverting slightly, but that's a key point about when you're delegating work, is that it's very easy to tick something off a list to say it's been done, balloons ordered, done, but the follow-up then needs to be there. So balloons ordered, done, Valerie's picking them up on, but that bit gets forgotten because sometimes it's as simple as that. People will think, I've ordered, job done. And follow up. And also that goes for the weekly meetings that you'll have with your manager, is that every element of that meeting you've had that week then needs to be followed up the next week. So the notes and everything made, so you can say, okay, let's recap on last week's meeting. What happened with that and that, or the manager will come back to you and say this is what happened and so on. So there's a recap as well, isn't there?
For sure, but if you do need that chit chat, because it is important for the manager, perhaps you're not in the business a lot, so they need that kind of offloading. They do. Make the meeting an hour and a half. Because if that's really valuable and you are, needing that just lighter, make it an hour and a half, and then just have that hour purely on what you need to, but half an hour on just, let's just sit down and have a cup of tea.
Because that's important as well for your relationship with the manager, that it's not all boom, 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 or, that you've got that element of friendship and camaraderie.
Very good. I'm just still on the boom, boom, boom bit.
The boom, boom, boom. But you've got all of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just... stop giving yourself a hard time. But if they're not productive and they continue to be a little bit disruptive because you're not taking control, then there's a deeper issue perhaps on how your leadership is perceived and put forward. So all you have to do now is press the subscribe button and join us every week for an Insight Chat.
And if you have any burning questions that we haven't yet answered, then just pop in the comments below or send us an email and we can include them in one of our weekly chats.
And also we have started this amazing community of like-minded salon owners to join us on a monthly basis with our Insight Chat subscription.
Yeah, on that chat as well, you'll also get access to lots of free downloads and content that can really support you in your business.
And thank you so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.